The first time it happened, I laughed. My girlfriend looked up from her coffee and said, "You still hate sleeping with your closet door open, right?" I nearly choked. It wasn't a strange fear exactly, but it wasn't something I talked about. As a kid, I used to imagine someone standing inside the dark opening, watching me. I was 38 years old and still closed every closet before bed. "Did I tell you that?" I asked. She shrugged. "Maybe. At the time, it felt harmless. I had been dating Claire for almost a year. She was funny, intelligent, and somehow made every ordinary day feel lighter. My friends loved her. My mother approved of her. Even my coworkers constantly told me how lucky I was. Life felt settled. After years of failed relationships and one painful engagement that never reached the altar, I finally believed I had found someone safe. Someone honest. Looking back, that's what hurts most. Everything seemed normal. The weekends together. The future plans. The quiet trust growing between us. I didn't know that hidden beneath all of it was a secret so massive that it would eventually destroy every certainty I had about my family, my relationship, and even my own identity. Over the following months, Claire kept knowing things she shouldn't have known. Tiny details. The name of my childhood dog. The fact that I broke my arm falling from a neighbor's fence when I was 11. The nickname my grandmother used before she died. None of these were on social media. None were stories I remembered telling. Every time I questioned her, she had an answer. "You probably mentioned it. Maybe your mom told me. You tell stories when you've had wine." Reasonable explanations. So I ignored the uncomfortable feeling. The truth was that I was deeply in love with her. Love has a way of making red flags look like misunderstandings. My family also adored Claire, especially my mother. That should have been another warning. My mother had always been difficult with my previous girlfriends. She criticized their jobs, appearances, manners, anything she could find. But with Claire, she was immediately warm, almost protective. The two of them texted constantly. At family dinners, I would sometimes catch them exchanging strange looks. Not hostile, not romantic, just familiar. Whenever I noticed, both of them would immediately act normal. I told myself I was imagining things. I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to believe that. The first real crack appeared during a family barbecue. My uncle was telling old stories, most of them embarrassing. Everyone was laughing. Then he mentioned a summer trip when I was 13. A trip I had never told Claire about. Before I could explain the story myself, Claire interrupted. "Oh, that's when he got lost near the lake for 3 hours." The table went silent. My uncle blinked. "How do you know that?" Claire froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. That tiny flash of panic. Then she laughed nervously. "He told me." "No, I didn't," I said automatically. The silence that followed felt heavy. My mother suddenly stood up and changed the subject. Too quickly, almost desperately. Nobody commented afterward. But that night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment. The confusion on my uncle's face. Claire's reaction. My mother's interruption. For the first time, I seriously considered that something was wrong. Not cheating. Not betrayal. Something stranger. Something that connected Claire and my family in a way nobody wanted to discuss. The idea sounded ridiculous. Yet once it entered my mind, it refused to leave. And from that moment forward, I started paying attention. I wish I hadn't. A few weeks later, Claire left her phone on the kitchen counter while showering. I wasn't searching for evidence. At least that's what I tell myself. But a notification appeared. It was from my mother. The message preview read, "We can't keep hiding this forever." My stomach dropped. I opened the conversation. I know that was wrong. I know it was an invasion of privacy. But if you've ever felt reality shifting beneath your feet, you'll understand. Hundreds of messages. Years worth. Not months. Years. My hands started shaking. I scrolled upward. Birthday photos. Holiday conversations. Shared memories. References to events that happened long before Claire and I met. Long before. I felt physically sick. Then I found the message that changed everything. Claire had written, "I hate lying to him every day." My mother replied, "We agreed this was for the best." I stared at those words for what felt like hours. My chest hurt. My heart was racing. Nothing made sense. Why were they communicating years before I knew Claire? Why were they hiding something from me? And why did it feel like everyone knew except me? I confronted Claire that same night. I didn't plan it. I exploded. The moment she walked into the living room, I threw her phone onto the couch. What the hell is going on? The color drained from her face. She knew immediately. Did you read my messages? Answer me. She started crying before I finished speaking. Not defensive tears. Defeated tears. The kind that appear when someone knows a secret can no longer survive. For several minutes she couldn't speak. I kept demanding answers. She kept apologizing. Finally she whispered, "I never wanted it to happen like this." Like what? What exactly was happening? I remember pacing around the room, my pulse hammering, my thoughts racing faster than I could process them. Then she said something that completely shattered my understanding of reality. "You need to talk to your mother. Not me. Not us. My mother." I stared at her. Why? More tears. More silence. Then she said, "Because this started before either of us knew each other." I felt cold. Terrifyingly cold. As if every instinct in my body was warning me that the truth waiting ahead was worse than anything I had imagined. The next morning I drove straight to my mother's house. I didn't call. I didn't warn her. I walked in and demanded answers. The moment she saw my face, she knew. She sat down immediately, almost like she had rehearsed this moment for years. "Claire told you?" Not enough. My mother looked exhausted, older than I had ever seen her. For several minutes neither of us spoke. Then she started crying. My mother rarely cried. That scared me more than anything. Finally she whispered, "There was another child." I frowned. What? There was another child? The room seemed to tilt. She explained that before I was born, she became pregnant during a brief relationship. Family pressure. Fear. Shame. All the usual reasons people hide things. She gave the baby up for adoption. Nobody outside a handful of relatives knew. Not even my father. I sat there stunned, trying to absorb it. A secret sibling. It was shocking, but it wasn't enough to explain Claire. Then I asked the question, "Why does this involve her?" My mother's face crumpled. I still remember her exact words. Every syllable. "Because they changed my life forever." She was the baby. I honestly thought I might pass out. My ears were ringing. My vision blurred. I kept waiting for her to correct herself. To say she was mistaken. To say Claire wasn't Claire. To say any of this was impossible. But she didn't. Claire was my biological sister. My girlfriend. My sister. Even writing those words years later makes me feel sick. I started yelling. Not coherent sentences. Just rage. Shock. Disbelief. My mother sat there crying while I demanded explanations. "How could you let this happen?" "We didn't know at first." "When did you know?" She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "When?" "About a year ago." A year. An entire year. They had known for a year. While Claire and I continued dating, planning vacations, talking about moving in together, talking about marriage. I felt betrayed on a level I didn't know existed. Not only had they hidden the truth, they had hidden it while watching me build a future around a lie. I left before she finished talking. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't even recognize the person I had been 24 hours earlier. Claire came to my apartment that evening. I almost didn't let her inside. Part of me wanted to disappear. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted answers. So I opened the door. She looked terrible. Red eyes. Shaking hands. A person carrying the weight of something unbearable. "I didn't know," she said immediately. "I don't care." I didn't. I wanted to hate her. That would have made things easier. But I knew she was telling the truth. She had discovered the adoption records through a genealogy test. A stupid birthday gift from a friend. One test. One result. And suddenly everything collapsed. She learned the truth first. Then she contacted my mother. The two of them met privately, confirmed everything, and panicked. "What were you thinking?" I asked. "We didn't know what to do." "You tell me." "We were afraid." Afraid. The word felt insulting. I had spent a year unknowingly living inside their secret. Every memory from that period suddenly felt contaminated. Every kiss. Every promise. Every dream. I couldn't separate love from horror anymore. And neither could she. The worst conversation happened 3 days later. Claire admitted something she had hidden even after the truth emerged. For several months after discovering we were related, she stayed. She kept dating me. She kept pretending. She kept saying she loved me. I stared at her in disbelief. Why? She started sobbing. Because I did love you. That answer destroyed me. Because I believed her. I still believe her. The relationship itself had been real. The feelings had been real. The future we imagined had been real. The problem was that reality itself had changed. She told me she tried ending things several times. My mother kept urging caution. Therapists were consulted anonymously. Lawyers were contacted. Everyone seemed focused on avoiding scandal, avoiding shame, avoiding consequences. Meanwhile, nobody protected me from the truth. Nobody respected my right to know. That realization became almost as painful as the family secret itself. People I trusted decided what information I deserved. They made choices for me, and every choice pushed the eventual explosion closer. News spread through the family faster than I expected. Secrets never stay buried. My uncle found out, then cousins, then family friends. Everyone had opinions. Very few had empathy. Some blamed my mother. Some blamed Claire. A few somehow blamed me, as if ignorance were a crime. Family gatherings became impossible. Phone calls turned awkward. Relationships fractured. People chose sides. The situation exposed years of buried resentment within the family. Old arguments resurfaced. Old accusations returned. Everything became chaos. Meanwhile, my mental health collapsed. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly, started avoiding friends. The humiliation was overwhelming. I couldn't explain what happened without seeing shock appear on people's faces. Even my therapist looked stunned during our first session. There were days I barely left bed. Days when I replayed every memory searching for clues. Days when I wondered whether my life would ever feel normal again. The person I had been before the revelation seemed gone forever. Like someone who died while I was still alive. My relationship with my mother never recovered. We tried. At least officially. There were conversations, apologies, explanations, tears. But trust is strange. Once it breaks, it doesn't return in the same shape. She insisted she was trying to protect everyone. Maybe she believed that. Maybe part of it was true. Yet every explanation felt hollow. Protection would have meant honesty. Instead, she chose secrecy. Every time I looked at her, I remembered that she watched me unknowingly date my sister for months after learning the truth. That image became impossible to erase. Our conversations grew shorter, less frequent, more careful. Eventually, we settled into a distant version of family. Polite, functional, emotionally guarded. The saddest part is that I miss the mother I thought I had. Not because she died. Because the person I imagined never really existed. The woman sitting across from me now carries secrets differently. And once you see that side of someone, you can never completely unsee it. Claire moved away 6 months later. We agreed it was necessary. Neither of us could heal while constantly reopening the wound. The goodbye was unbearable. People assume ending a forbidden relationship automatically removes the feelings. It doesn't. Love doesn't disappear because circumstances become unacceptable. It simply becomes painful. We met one final time in a quiet park. No drama. No shouting. Just sadness. She told me she was starting over. New city. New job. New life. I wished her happiness. And meant it. That confused me for a long time. How could I still care about someone connected to so much pain? The answer was simple. Because before the revelation, she had been my favorite person. And after the revelation, she was still the same human being. Neither of us created the secret. We simply got trapped inside it. When we hugged goodbye, it felt less like ending a romance and more like burying an entire future. A future that should never have existed. But one we had genuinely loved anyway. Years have passed now. On the surface, my life looks normal again. I work. I pay bills. I meet friends. I date occasionally. Most people who know me today have no idea what happened. Yet certain things never fully heal. DNA tests and advertisements make my stomach turn. Family trees make me uncomfortable. Even innocent questions about relatives can trigger anxiety. Trust became complicated too. When someone says, "I have nothing to hide," part of me immediately doubts them. Not because they're lying, Because I learned how easily enormous truths can remain hidden. I've also become obsessed with details. Small inconsistencies. Tiny contradictions. Things most people ignore. Sometimes I wonder whether that's wisdom or damage. Maybe both. The experience permanently altered how I see relationships. Not just romantic ones. All relationships. Every connection now carries an awareness that people can love you deeply while still withholding life-changing truths. That lesson arrived at a price I never would have chosen to pay. The strangest part is that I occasionally miss her. Not romantically. At least I don't think so. I miss the conversations. The jokes nobody else understood. The feeling of being known. Ironically, that's what started everything. Claire knew things about me I never told her. Back then it felt mysterious. Then unsettling. Eventually devastating. Now it feels tragic. Because those details weren't evidence of manipulation. They were fragments of a shared history neither of us understood. Shared genetics. Shared family. Shared roots hidden beneath decades of secrecy. Sometimes I imagine an alternate version of reality. One where my mother told the truth years earlier. One where Claire grew up knowing who she was. One where we met as siblings instead of strangers. Maybe we would have been close. Maybe we would have laughed about our similarities. Maybe none of this pain would exist. Those thoughts don't change anything. But they still visit me during quiet nights when sleep refuses to come. I don't know why I'm posting this now. Maybe because carrying a secret for years changes you. Maybe because some stories never find a proper ending. People always ask whether closure exists. I honestly don't know. What happened can't be fixed. It can't be undone. There isn't a satisfying lesson waiting at the end. There isn't a neat resolution. Just consequences, memories, and questions that still echo years later. If I learn anything, it's that truth delayed often becomes truth weaponized. Every person involved thought they were protecting someone. Instead, they created a disaster. The moment I realized my girlfriend knew intimate details I had never shared should have alarmed me. It was the first clue. The first crack. The first warning that something beneath the surface wasn't right. I ignored it because I trusted the people I loved. I don't regret loving them. Oddly enough, that's not the part that hurts. The part that hurts is knowing they loved me too and still chose silence. And even now, after everything, that's the betrayal I think about most.